Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Garage Biljon and my 94 Safari build. And if you are thinking that you are looking at the wrong episode, you are wrong. This is the right episode because I had to take the axle out from underneath this car again. So if you missed why, I'll put a link up there for you to follow along. But basically, I need to re-index my torsion bars because I had them too aggressively angled. So let me show you where we are at. 8 degrees. There's a little bit of grease here, but I'll wipe it for you. So you can see we are sitting at 8 degrees. Before we were sitting at 11, 10 comma something towards 11. This is the 2 degrees I needed to take out of the spring plate. And the good news is you can see this hole again, which means I'm not overextending this plate. So now that I've done this side, I'll do the other side. And then we will miraculously fast forward and you will join me again with this all back under the car. And we will start by bleeding the brakes. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. Alright guys, so just before I do some movie magic and miraculously bring you to a fully installed axle, I wanted to just show you the degrees I ended up at. It is 22,85 and the other side is 22,95-ish. So we took out a minimum of 2 degrees from where we were. I was at 25, I think 25,5 even. So I took out 2.5 degrees on both sides. It's now fully assembled again, so it's going back in the car. Alright, welcome back to a rear axle that's installed, and this time I have the shocks installed. Thank you very much for all of your advice again via Facebook, via YouTube and via Instagram. I think this is the trick. I had to put in those shocks. It is putting this spring arm under a fair amount of tension, so I might still have to do the modification to the shock, which makes it a little bit longer with that spacer. But for now at least it's in. You can see the angle is nowhere what it used to be, and I have full movement on my wheel, even though it's a bit tight, but that's because the brakes are not adjusted properly and it needs to be bedded in, but it's in. So I'll put the wheels on and then I'll put it on the floor. Alright, so she's on the floor with the full assembly now in, and she's a little bit lower than I thought she would be, but that makes sense because of the shocks that are in there at the moment. I'm going to talk to Bilstein or one of the shock absorber specialists to see whether they can make me a custom one that is longer than what I've got. So I'll add basically 4 centimeters to the shock spec. And then the car should sit slightly higher than it's sitting now because the shock is now pulling that torsion bar quite a lot, which is not sustainable. But she looks good. I'm quite happy. This will still settle a little bit. It's still a little bit high, but she's looking good, I think. I'm happy with this. So I'm going to now get the quick jacks under it again so I can get all 4 of the wheels off again, and then we're going to bleed the brakes. And finally, we are back to where I left you at the last video, except for this time I have a shock installed and I've got a working axle And you saw my daughter under the car helping me align the gearbox to the drive shaft so that I can move the collar over. So now the gearbox is hooked up to the engine as well. So that's all buttoned up. So now I'm going to quickly bleed all 4 corners. This side is nice and dirty. Side you can see it's brown, but it's getting better. Let's give it some more pressure again. Pressure is good. We're still holding steady at 15 psi. So fluid's good here, fluid's good there. So we can keep on bleeding. It's starting to look better, but it's still very dirty oil. Lots of air. Okay, let's close that up. Now it's the fronts. These should in theory be clean, but there will be a lot of air here, I think. Pressure is still good. This looks okay. Right, and finally, this is the passenger side, right-hand side. Let's see how this guy goes. There we go. Some bubbles, but then it's actually clean as well, which is good. Yeah, this one's good. So now we just need to do a couple of stomps on the brake to make sure the brakes are pressurizing. And then I'm going to bleed those once more because there were some more bubbles in that one, especially this far side one had a lot of bubbles. But the front is good, no more bubbles here, so I'm happy with this. And the curveballs keeps coming with this car, but luckily this time I was prepared because I snapped off yet another bleed nipple. And I wouldn't have snapped this off if the correct parts arrived, but only the slave cylinder on that side was the correct part. The one on this side is the incorrect part. So that's going back to the supplier. And I thought, oh, well, you know, work with what you've got. So I was bleeding it. That's why it was making bubbles, because there was a crack in this already. So I spent quite a bit of effort to get it out, and that's now out. And I have replaced it with a brand new bleed nipple. So now this is good. So now that the brakes are all bled, I have to do the handbrake. And for that, I just basically need to click it up to 3 clicks. So let's get that going. 1, 2, 3. And I already adjusted this one before I bled the brakes, so I think this one will be good. This one can be a little bit tighter. And let's see the other side. How's this side doing? Oh, this one's good. This one's very good. This one's tight. So that one needs to be adjusted a couple of notches. Alright, so what we have to do is just adjust that little cam there and that little cam there. Alright, so I've adjusted it again now, just a couple of turns further. So let me just check 3, whether it's better now. I hope so. Yes. This will do. Maybe one more notch, but I think we're done with the brakes for now. And if you look closely, you can see I've taken the shocks out again because I'm looking at solutions for lengthening my shock absorbers, and I think I might have found the ultimate solution. So some of you guys told me to have custom shocks made. I've spoken to a Dutch company that makes custom shocks. It's not just a couple of euros, it's going to cost me a couple of hundred to make them. So I took these guys off the car and I pulled the dust boot off, and what do I see? I see that this is threaded into the top. So I'm going to go to an engineering works and I'm going to ask them to make me a longer thread so that I get the 4 centimeters I need, because it's really just that. I mean, this has to be sort of kind of there. If they can chop off this little collar here and they make me a new sleeve that's longer and weld that on, I have the 4 centimeters I need, and I think that'll be nice and safe and strong, and that's better than all the options I've seen so far. So I'm off to the engineering works now quickly. They're just around the corner from me, and they will then hopefully tell me that my idea is feasible, and then they'll modify my shocks, and then maybe tomorrow evening these can go back into the car. So I'm happy to report that my idea for modification worked. It was not simple to get loose. They had to heat this up quite a lot because it was attached with permanent Loctite. So basically we made this spacer with a bit of thread on the inside and a bit of thread on the top, and just made this shock 4 centimeters longer. So I'm going to pop the sleeve over the top again so it looks like it's an OEM shock again. And then we're going to get it back under the car, and hopefully then I'll have the correct ride height and I will have drive shafts that are not locking up on me. Success! They are in. It took a little bit of work to get them to go in, but they are in. And you can see the angle of my spring plate is now roughly where I wanted it. It's no longer almost horizontal as it was when it was shorter with the 4 centimeters. So now, in theory, this is drooping down about 3 or 4 centimeters lower, which is where we want it to be. And the good news is that my drive shafts are not locking up. You can see they run really nicely. So, with this all buttoned up, I still need to torque a few things. None of this has been torqued up, but I'm going to see now if I can hang the exhaust, and if I have the exhaust under the car, then basically it's fully assembled. Alright, I've got myself set up under the car. This is the new mid-silencer with its sealing ring and a new bracket and a whole bunch of new bolts and nuts. But the first thing I need to do is to take out this old bolt, because it doesn't go out this way, because it's too long, because whoever did this welded this bracket after they put the bolt in. Alright, so I've got the exhaust hanging loosely in its place, and I only have to put in this bracket still and clamp the two pieces together on this side. And if you look over here, there is very little daylight in between the drive shaft and the exhaust. This is at full droop, so I think we'll be okay, but I need to bolt it all up and tighten it all up, and then we'll know for sure if I need to maybe just bang a dent into this exhaust here. It's not ideal, but I need to make this work somehow. Alright guys, just one last bolt to do and then we are ready. Alright, so the exhaust is now nicely clamped. This guy is clamped up, this guy's in, so you can see this is very solidly mounted. It is touching a little bit on the drive shaft, but it's minimal, and I think once the car's on the ground I'll get the clearance I need. So it's in. I have everything tightened up that needs to be tightened up. So I think there's nothing left for us to do but actually start the car. Here goes nothing. "5 months and she's perfect." Awesome. She's running perfectly. A little bit of smoke, but that's just WD-40 burning off. There we go, on 1000 RPM from cold, and this is 5 months after the last start. She's doing great. Yay! Right, so let's get the wheels on and then we'll get it on the ground, and then finally we'll see how much this car has been lifted by. That's more like it. Well, there we go. Hopefully this is going to work. It's already settling a little bit, so but I'm very, very happy with what I'm seeing. Which means we are ending the episode here, and the next episode will be me installing the front bumper, the new roof rack, and also starting to work on the cosmetics. And let me show you what I've already started playing with and experimenting. It's on this side where you guys haven't been looking for the last couple of weeks. And you can see I've got this square plasti dip. This was just me testing to see whether I can plasti dip in the garage with about 11 degrees. It is working. The fuel cap is working as well. So I will be sanding down the body or everywhere where it's rough. And then we will start plasti dipping this car all the way through from the roof down to the bottom. And then we will be ready for roadworthiness. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss my next video. And until next time, goodbye.